VEO?
Yeah, VEO.
It's here! It's here! It's here! Oh! Oh!
VEO?
VEO?
VEO.
Let's do this.
I don't know if you've heard, but I think it's here. VEO3, the new video with audio generation system from Google, has recently released, and it is all the hype. Is it worth it? Is it not? Should you put up some money to try it out? I'm going to dive into that. But first, let me show you a little project that I just put together in roughly 24 hours. Let's take a look at VEO3 in action.
Our species needs and deserves a citizenry with minds wide awake and a basic understanding of how the world works.
If you wish to make an apple pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe.
Science is a candle in the dark.
It is far better to grasp the universe as it really is than to persist in delusion, however satisfying and reassuring.
Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. We are star stuff, harvesting starlight.
The universe is not required to be in perfect harmony with human ambition.
Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
The universe is a pretty big place. If it's just us, seems like an awful waste of space.
Imagination will often carry us to worlds that never were. But without it, we go nowhere.
The beauty of a living thing is not the atoms that go into it, but the way those atoms are put together. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself.
We are like butterflies who flutter for a day and think it is forever.
For small creatures such as we, the vastness is bearable only through love.
Somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known.
Yeah. Carl Sagan, the universe is a better place having had you in it. Thank you. Listen, VEO3 is a very exciting model out there that you can obviously create videos and audio. All of that audio generation came with the videos that were being generated using VEO3. Very exciting. It is the big ticket item in this announcement with VEO3. VEO2 has been out for a while. VEO3 video generation is, as far as I can tell, similar, better, but similar. But really the game changer is, my gosh, you can create audio with it. It does sound effects, background music, kind of ambiance, sound effects, maybe a stretch in many cases, but it does dialogue with lip syncing, multiple languages. It is really amazing. Now, everybody's kind of freaking out over this thing, and it really is worth freaking out a little bit over, but I want to make sure that you're freaking out over the right parts. It's super exciting, and you can do some really amazing things with it, but you do have to stay within its own lane to be very successful with it. I'm going to take you on a behind-the-scenes tour of how I created that video and some of the bumps along the way, because not everything back there is perfect. In fact, you really have to work with VEO, as I've mentioned, to really get the best out of it. But let's take a look to figure out whether or not you really want to spend some money trying out VEO. I'm going to walk you through what I did very briefly with VEO3. There is something fantastic about what VEO3 is doing. It deserves the hype. This I see as the DALL moment for video generation. And the reason I call it the DALL moment is DALL was by no stretch astonishing images. That I think is where VEO3 is. We can do some amazing things with it, but it is within its own box. But we're going to use Flow, which is essentially their Sora tool. It's their video editing tool. So let's drop into Sora. Let's drop into Flow, and I'll show you the work process that I went by and a few of the crunchy things that I found along the way. Okay, when you find yourself in Flow, you will probably be in this mode, which is a neat little carousel mode, or you can go to grid mode. Looking at grid mode, you can look at all of the different projects that you've created and then drop into each one of those, and there will be a number of video generations inside of these projects. Each one of these videos then can be added to the scene builder. The scene builder, if we look in this breadcrumb, this is where we started. We go into a project, and inside of that project, there's a scene builder. So I can add each one of these videos to the scene builder. I'll move the play point to the end, and then add the next one to the scene builder. And then we have these two videos together, essentially. And it's worth mentioning, this is VEO2's generation of this horse. And at the end scene here, I hit extend to create a VEO3 version of the same horse that has audio because I wanted to put the pig in. VEO2 is fantastic. So if you happen to flop into the VEO2 build versus the VEO3 build, don't worry so much about it. The thing that's going to be the distinction and maybe drive you a little bit crazy is that it's not going to have audio or sound effects, no matter what you put in your prompt. Okay, when you're in here and you want to generate a new video, we would put a prompt in here. If we're doing text to video, there are 3 versions, and I believe ingredients to video is only on Ultra, so that's where you can select different objects to be in each one of these areas, and they will be added into the video that you're creating relative to the prompt. You can also do frame to video. That means what frame do you want to start with, and potentially where do you want to go, and we will blend the two together. Both of those, if you're using anything other than first frame or the ingredients, will require you to move down into the VEO2 model. They can't use the VEO3 model, and this may change tomorrow. In fact, I just saw something that I can do today that I couldn't do while I was working on this project in the last couple days. So things are changing frequently. Anything I say here is a little grain of salt, but it's worth understanding. Some of the features are absolutely not possible with the VEO3 model, the model that you might want to exercise that has audio. It's also worth noting that when you select the different model here, you'll see the cost, but you'll notice in this case, even though I select the VEO3 model, it's still saying 10 credits. That's because it's actually not going to allow me to use this model. If I were to hit this button, it will say, oh, we're going to switch you down to a compatible model, which means it selected the model that I could use for this. So it can only use the VEO2 model, and in fact, it can't even use the high quality VEO2 model for begin to end frame kind of generation. However, if we do it with just begin frame, then I can move between the different generation models. So I can use the fast model for 10 credits. I can use the highest quality, which is VEO3 for 100 credits. So it takes a bit of time to understand what you can do with VEO3. If you're really trying to kick the VEO3 tires, really the answer is you can do text to video, works perfectly fine. You can do frames to video as long as you only select starting frame. If you select anything other than starting frame, including all of these very cool different camera pushes and pulls in the direction of the camera, none of that works. That will kick you back down to the VEO2 fast model. So VEO3 is really only there for text to video and again, like I said, today, and currently things like a jump to scene or extend scene inside of that scene builder scenario where you can kind of add on to something you've already created. I wasn't able to extend a scene with VEO3 the other day. I seem to be able to do that today. So who knows what it's going to look like in a couple days. Basically, you can't do everything. This is not open channel VEO3. You just go for it and do everything with it. I wish it was. That really dramatically constrains what kind of projects you can create with this today. So hopefully over the coming weeks, that will update quite a bit and we'll be able to do more and more in that space. So let's come back and do a text to video. You'll notice we have man walks down the street, brown bag in his hand with a bottle, police cars race past, this kind of thing. And I am going to select the highest quality model, which will be VEO3. I'll show you that, I'm sorry. So the first two are VEO2 models. VEO3 model is the one that we're going to select, and we're going to let that one run. What it shows up here is just kind of a placeholder. This is not really a diffusion panel showing you the video itself generating. It looks like it is. I've had a lot of failed generations over the last couple days, I think probably from volume. And this just sits there and counts all the way up until things time out. It does not aggressively time things out behind the scenes. If I reload right now, this is another problem. I will do this for us. If I reload this page, that actually goes away. That image, the video itself is still generating. I can't find it. It's nowhere in my project lists anywhere. And if I come back out here, you'll notice we have an empty project that we just created. If I go back into the project, we still don't have anything. We'll see in a second, this will come back as that generation completes. So it's still happening behind the scenes. There's some real problems with this UI that they need to work on. It is not really ready for prime time. You will bump into these. But let's get to the things that are actually more meaningful than just that. Now that you know that there's different modes and different models and that you'll be kicked down to VEO2 a lot, I think we're seeing a lot of VEO2 generations in the examples that people are sharing on the web today. But let's jump into a couple of the problems that I just fought to get past. For example, there are a bunch of issues with titling. So you'll see this object here has titles on it. Some have titles, some don't have titling on it. So I'm really talking about the closed captioning. Closed captioning is a real beast to get rid of. It shows up in some situations and not in others. In fact, so much so that I have a whole part of my prompt that deals with there's no text, clear screen, spoken aloud, on-screen characters, not a voiceover, not sung, no subtitles. All of those things were required as I bumped into one thing after the other, and they really don't work that well. These are not things that are highly directive, so I am still really fighting getting titling back or not getting titling back. And the captions that do come back when I say titling is the captions. When those captions do come back, it is really a who knows if it's going to come back with clear captioning, like actually good lettering, fits the words that are spoken. That is maybe 20% of the time it actually works correctly. Usually it's like typical text generation in an image model. So it's really poor versions of the captions. So I wish they would just turn them off for the most case and then later allow us to add captioning if it's needed, or have an over-the-top mechanism to add captioning or something else. I think that them having captioning inside of this is just a mistake. It got in the way almost every single time and was eradicatable in many cases that I literally could not get it off of certain generations no matter how many ways I did it. I actually have a video that was really, let's see if I can find it, that I liked very, very much. Yeah, this video here, I'll share this one with you. I wanted to use this one in the project, and I re-rolled it many, many times with changes to the prompt and hopes of fixing it. And no matter what I did, I could not get rid of the singing, and it says no singing. And I couldn't get rid of the music in the background, as I was hoping to be able to put music over the top of the video itself. So there were a lot of things that I could not direct out of it. In fact, I had to go a completely different direction with this shot and this quote, unfortunately, because I really liked this generation.
We are like butterflies who flutter for a day and think it is forever.
Yeah, so that's an example of one that I just couldn't get past. And in fact, you saw titling. If you watch my video again, you'll see that I have titling in there that I just couldn't get rid of. There's some of these generations I could not get rid of I couldn't get rid of the captions. So that just happens. It happens a lot. But my real pattern here of creating this, just so you can see it, to finish this down, I would say I built out a prompt that started getting pretty good. And in fact, I created a GPT, not a full GPT. I just started a conversation with, believe it was 03, but it might have just been 4.0 in ChatGPT. And said, okay, you're a video generation, prompt generation system. I need to work with you. And we went back and forth multiple times as I was finding new things. Like, well, I can't get him to stop singing. Maybe we should add that into the prompt. I need the prompt to be shorter. Don't give me the full-blown crazy long prompt. This thing, VEO seems to get really confused if the prompt gets really, really long and very descriptive. So it had to be a succinct description of what was going on with some of these hints that I'm putting at the end. And then dialogue at the end happened to work a little bit better than if I put the dialogue reference somewhere in the middle. Dialogue, this one happens to be in quotes. Often seemed that if it was in quotation marks, it would put captions on maybe a little bit more frequently. So I made sure that the prompting system knew how to create these. If we look at much later video generations, you'll see that the dialogue is not in quotes here. And that was because I'd found those differences. So there's a bunch of things that I learned along the way, and I could just go back to this chat system and say, okay, now the prompt needs to do this. Now it needs to act like that. But what it got me to is a place of being able to put in a new quote that I was interested in creating. And then with that quote, if I had a direction, if I had an idea of what the scene might be, I could then put in a hint. Otherwise, the GPT itself did the generation with the juxtaposition that I was looking for. And that was kind of great. The working model of that was wonderful, that I could put that in, see what its initial generation was, tune it a little bit, do a little bit of directing on what I thought the scene might be, came out with one of these prompts. I could come out, paste it here, let it generate, go create another. So it really became a very useful pattern to say, use some of the other tools that are there, kind of work with AI to generate the best versions of these prompts that you can, and keep updating your understanding of how the prompt needs to be built so that it always works the same way every time. That kept it much more succinct. So I would certainly advise something like that again. I will definitely do it again. I don't always do that when I do images, when I'm working for just flat images, but this prompt was so specific that helped. I thought I would hand that off and show that to you. I will also say, look, this was fun. This was a lot of fun. I will definitely be doing more of this. I hope to, though I think I'm out of money for a little while, I hope to be able to try Runway and Kling and a couple other video models to see how they actually compare. But I'll be honest, the fact that they do not have this audio generation may be a stopper for me. Wanting to get to a place to where the characters are insightful or speaking or have some kind of presence on the screen rather than just their image is so important. I cannot describe. That's what everybody's talking about with VEO3. It is a game changer. Real creative people can go out there and create truly meaningful art already with this that would have cost way too much for them to put together all of these different settings and scenes and actors and everything else. So I think that this is a real game changer for the industry. It is just that DALL-E moment. It's the first step. If you look at what we can do with GPT 1.1 image model today versus what DALL-E was with its 1.0 image generation just a year and a half later, that is going to happen in this space. So this was a lot of fun. I'm glad that you kind of got to see behind the scenes of how I created the image, and maybe this gave you some ideas of how you might be able to use VEO or where it's crunchy of whether or not you should spend a bunch of money to jump in. All right, that was about as fast as I can do this. I've done this multiple times. I hope it wasn't too much for you. Let's wrap this thing up. Oh, wait, you know what I heard? This is kind of awesome. For me, it's a huge thing. I think I've been told by production staff, of which there are many, that we have a sponsor. Can we take a look at that?
These kinds of videos, they're very expensive.
Yeah. If you don't mind, like, subscribe, and when this finishes, please watch it about 40 more times.
Okay, so that was fun. It's been a fun time kind of building this project out. It's taken a lot longer than I thought it would, but really I got into it, right? There's a joy in being able to create. And let me say that being able to create in a space that I previously wouldn't have thought I could possibly be able to create. So there's no way I was going to go get 28 different actors and 10 different settings and locations and rent out people that were going to be able to do costume and makeup. That the bar for doing something like that is so high, it doesn't even allow me to dream that high. And I think a lot of people, I'll turn it on myself and say, I'm an engineer who spent an entire life sharpening a set of skills to be a better engineer, to be better at development of code and understanding of the complexities of the interactions between different systems. There's a lot in there to learn. But that makes that bar so high for other people to imagine jumping over that it's almost not worth trying. We shouldn't be holding some of these things for the people that happen to have access to time, to money, to resources to be able to do them. We're just limiting an enormous number of people's opportunity to explore creativity, to explore really creation of their ideas and exploration of themselves and their voice. This shows me that more than anything else. Go in, dive in on something like VEO3, create some videos yourself, and see if you don't start getting lost in that enjoyment, that just pure joy of creation. You get to decide the different decisions on which way it might go. Now, I will say VEO3, as I've said in this in this video is not perfect. It is the very beginning. And so it doesn't allow a lot of that extra creativity. Something like ChatGPT, the image model that recently released, where you can get a single image and then start editing it much more creatively with natural language, that starts giving you a little bit more feeling of that creation rather than a single prompt gives you a single response and you hope that it's right. The next prompt, even if it's an edit, is not going to be anything like the first, so it's just starting over. I think that's where we still are. But this tool really shows where this industry and where many of these tools are going. It's very exciting. I hope you have a chance to play with it. I actually really enjoyed my time with it. It was more expensive than I'd like to admit, but that's just what it is. You know, sometimes you pay to play. Eventually, this will be the floor that we're all standing on and be able to use these tools. So in any case, I'm really glad you were here for this one. I hope this showed you a little bit about VEO 3 and whether or not it meets the hype or at least meets your wallet and you might want to pay for it to kind of try it out a little bit extra. First, go to Gemini and do a couple generations yourself. You should be able to do that if you're even subscribed to the Pro model. All right. In any case, thanks for being here for this one. Thanks for coming along for the ride on it, and I'll see you in the next one.
We're done here. Go on.